Good evening, everyone. We have a quorum, so we're going to get started. I'm calling to order the May 14th, 2024 Middleton Annual Town Meeting. Welcome, everyone. I am Barbara Pacelli, the town moderator, and with me, could everybody keep it down, please? With me, Paul, is it back? With me is Eileen Twist. It's gone again. With me is Eileen Twist, our town clerk. I'm going to have to yell. The town clerk has informed me that the warrant has been duly published and posted. The reading of the warrant is hereby waived. I'd be remiss before starting if I didn't take this opportunity to introduce the select board, who is sitting on my left with their chair, Jeffrey Garber. Also sitting to my left is our town administrator, Justin Salzbach. With him is the assistant town administrator, Jackie Bresnahan, and our finance director, Sarah Wood, as well as town council, Kate Federoff. And on my right is the Finance Committee with their co-chairs, John Erickson and Richard Gregorio. Now, I invite you all to stand with me as we welcome Scout Troop 19.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Color guard dismissed.
Thank you to the Scouts. We'll try this again. As usual, our meeting is being audio and video recorded, and now is the time for those of you who haven't done so to silence your cell phones, and this includes everybody who's trying to watch a hockey game. So tonight's warrant, which you all had available to you either online or mailed directly to your homes, has 23 articles for your consideration. Some of them are going to look familiar to you from past year's annual meetings. We are going to take the articles in the order that they're listed in the warrant, with the exception of any that are included in a consent agenda, and I'm going to speak more in a few minutes about that consent agenda. It is my hope that most motions this evening are going to be resolved by voice vote. However, I fully anticipate that a card count is going to become necessary on several of the articles, so make sure that you don't throw away those cards and you keep them handy. And please be reminded, and this is directed to everybody standing against that wall in the back, that your votes are not going to be counted unless you're in a chair. So I suggest you go to one immediately. As usual, anyone that wants to speak on an article needs to go up to one of the microphones. You can see that there's one in that aisle, there's another one in that aisle, and if absolutely necessary, there's one here at the podium. You need to wait for me to call on you before you begin speaking, and before you start your remarks, you should state your name and your address. I'm going to ask everyone that speaks to limit your remarks to about 2 minutes. As you know, it has not been my practice to use the big clock on the wall that we had in the past. However, one of our volunteers here this evening in the front row, Kevin, will be keeping an eye on his iPhone clock and will be giving me a little bit of a signal when we're approaching the 2-minute limit on each speaker. I will, however, be giving the proponents of certain articles a little more leeway in the time that they have to present their articles and provide information to all you voters. But their time will be limited somewhat as well. When you do speak, it's important that you remember to direct your remarks to me as the moderator and not direct anything that you say to anyone personally. There are several complicated and high-profile articles on tonight's agenda, and I am very sensitive to the fact that voters might have very strong feelings about them. However, I want everyone who wants to speak to have the opportunity to do so and to feel comfortable when they do speak. Therefore, please remember to speak respectfully and to listen respectfully and to be civil at all times. Also, please be mindful of the fact that no one can speak at town meeting unless I have recognized them to do so. I haven't received any motions to amend in advance of this meeting. If anyone is considering making such a motion, please be reminded that that will require a recess of the meeting for legal review. Now back to our consent agenda discussion. As many of you who have been present at the last few annual meetings may recall, we have used consent agendas quite successfully in the past. Consent agendas can make town meetings more efficient by grouping together routine and non-controversial articles. Articles that are placed on consent agendas are considered for approval in a single vote without any discussion. The consent agenda that I have prepared for your consideration this evening contains 12 articles. We are going to take them up first, and then we're going to move right into Article 1. So we're going to get down to business, starting with the consent agenda. I will read each article's number and subject. If 7 members of the meeting raise their cards to say hold on any one article, I will remove that article from the consent agenda, and it will be considered during the usual course of town meeting along with all other articles. So turning to the consent agenda, which I see on the slide is captioned consent calendar. Starting with current and prior year financial articles. Article 3 funds a portion of shared public health staffing. Article 4 funds police salaries and wages pursuant to a collective bargaining agreement. Turning next to fiscal year 2025 financial articles. Article 8 funds the community preservation budget. Article 9 funds new community preservation projects for fiscal year 2025. Article 10 authorizes revolving funds spending limits. Article 11 funds the Southern Essex Sewer District Enterprise Budget. Article 12 funds the Water Enterprise Budget. Article 13 allows the town to accept earnings from MELD to reduce taxes. Article 14 transfers funds to various reserve funds. Article 19 provides for the local adoption of legislation concerning the investment of town trust funds, otherwise known as the Prudent Investment Rule. Article 20 increases the tax deferral limit. And Article 21 provides for the town's acceptance of legislation allowing a treasurer-collector education stipend. Is there a motion to approve the articles in the consent agenda as they appear in the warrant? Mr. Prentakis. Is there a second? All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, nay. The motion passes unanimously. Thank you, everyone. That just resolved 12 articles in the warrant. Good job. We might get people home for the Bruins game yet. Turning to Article 1, we're going to hear 3 reports from various town committees, starting with, if I remember correctly, the affordable housing. Mr. Cresta. You're always first in our book.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. Brian Cresta, 5 Ogden Lane. On behalf of the Affordable Housing Trust Committee, and that is made up as myself as a designee of the Select Board, Anthony D. Gregorio, a designee of the Community Preservation Act Committee, Richard Gregorio, a designee of the Finance Committee, Maria Pecos Hanses, Maria from the Housing Authority, Jason Bernhard from the Planning Board, and 2 at-large members, Beth Andrus Beck and William Renault. I'm pleased to give this report today, and I'll be very brief. A few meetings ago, this Assembly approved the creation of an Affordable Housing Trust Committee, which the Select Board appointed members as designed. During that process, we have slowly but methodically built a process moving forward for affordable housing efforts here in Middleton. Part of that was dollars that we received from the Community Preservation Committee at a previous town meeting, but also the receipt of a state grant from the Metropolitan Area Planning Council, which allowed us to engage at 0 cost to the town a consultant to assist us with the creation of a strategic plan. Just last Wednesday, that 5-year strategic plan was approved by the committee. I would welcome you all to visit our website, on the town's website, to peruse the plan, both short-term, medium-term, and long-term efforts. That's a 5-year plan. You'll be hearing more of this in the coming weeks and months. I'd ask you all to get engaged and provide your input, because some of those activities may come back to this body for action. I think we all agree that affordable housing is an issue here in Middleton, and I just want to say thank you on behalf of the committee for creating this committee, town meeting creating this, but also to my colleagues in the committee for their work to date. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cresta. The second report we're going to hear from is John Erickson on behalf of the Solid Waste Advisory Committee.
Good evening. My name is John Erickson. I'm a member of the Finance Committee and also the chairperson of the Solid Waste Advisory Committee at the Selectmen Forum a couple of years ago. I spoke at the last town meeting about the things we were going through and looking through about trash collection in Middleton. I'm not going to go through that again, but I do want to summarize what our findings were and our recommendation to the Select Board on basically how to divide up the costs of the transfer station and the trash disposal between taxation and the sticker fees that you need in order to use the transfer station. And we decided that we were going to take the direct expenses for recycling disposal, the trash tipping fees, and the fuel and oil and consumables involved in getting rid of the trash and getting it out of the transfer station to dispose of. That was going to be sectioned off and is going to be part of the sticker fee. So that's really the direct cost of getting rid of the trash. The personnel, the maintenance, the capital, and everything having to do with having the transfer station, that's going to remain on taxation. And I think that we've also removed the landfill maintenance and testing. It's kind of out of the transfer station's budget. It's going to be in another budget item, but that was always on taxation, and that's where it's going to remain. Anyway, so what you'll notice is come September, the sticker fee, which is currently $125, is going to go up, we're estimating, to about $185. And I know that's a big jump, but except for maybe the Recreation Commission, it's still the best deal in Middleton for getting rid of your trash. You get private trash pickup, you're paying $500-600 a year to have it picked up. So that's, we recommended basically a formula to look at the cost of the tipping fees, which is changing rapidly, the cost of recycling, which in recent years has varied pretty dramatically, and that volatility was really putting a burden on the tax rate. So we're hoping that this is going to make the tax rate a bit more stable rather than having $50,000 and $100,000 jumps on that line item. So that's my report. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Erickson. And our last report is from Bill Renault on behalf of the Town Building Committee.
Good evening, Madam Moderator. Bill Renault, 19 Park Ave, Chair of the Town's Building Committee. I am pleased to announce that the Middleton Municipal Complex project has officially entered the construction phase. Over the upcoming weeks, the work will focus mainly on establishing secure perimeters, demolishing the existing structure, and setting up the day-to-day construction operation. Later this year, you will expect to see installation of access roads, project utilities, building foundations, and the public safety steel frame. Construction contracts are currently at $1.5 million under our total project budget, which is good news, and we will continue to look for additional savings as the project progresses. The town will be hosting a groundbreaking ceremony on June 14th at 12:30. You are all invited. And on behalf of the Building Committee, I want to thank you all for your ongoing support and commitment to this vital project for Middleton's future. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, now to the first substantive article, which will be Article 2. Article 2 authorizes the payments of bills, or in this case, one bill from prior fiscal years. This requires a 4/5 majority vote. Finance Committee.
Peter Moon, 57 Park Ave. I move and the Finance Committee recommends that the town transfer from free cash the sum of $90 to be used to fund prior year bills.
Hey, sometimes the law's the law, so you have to do it the right way. Any questions or discussion on this article? All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed say nay.
Paul, what are you calling it? Are you calling it a strong majority?
I think it's a pretty strong majority. don't
very
you?
strong
I think it's an overwhelming majority.
I knew I shouldn't have started to write unanimous.
You know, you better not be fresh, because the next article. What's the next article? I don't see it on the screen.
Article 5.
Article 5
Where is it, screen?
sets the salary for town's elected officials. Finance Committee?
Tom Martinick, 17 Park Ave. I move and the Finance Committee recommends that the town set the compensation of elected officials pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 41, Section 108, all as shown on the compensation plan, Table A, as printed in the town meeting warrant.
Any questions or discussion on Article 5? This is a simple majority vote. All in favor say aye. All opposed, say nay. The article passes unanimously. Article 6 funds our operating budget for the next fiscal year. In keeping with our past practice established since I became the moderator, we are not going to read the entire budget line by line, as you all have had it available to you for several weeks. Instead, I will open the entire budget up for any comments and questions you may have after the motion. Finance Committee?
Richard Gregorio, 29 Peasley Circle. I move and the Finance Committee recommends that the town appropriates the sum of $46,327,421 to fund the omnibus budget for the fiscal year 2025, and that to meet this appropriation, $45,439,156 be raised and appropriated through taxation, local receipts, and state aid. $650,000 to be transferred from the ambulance fund, $97,456 be transferred from the sewer and water enterprise funds, and $140,809 be transferred from the PEG cable fund. So this article basically presents the omnibus budget for FY25 based upon the limitations with the Proposition 2.5. It's basically, there are some cutbacks in services to get to this, and there's some level services. Article 7, I'll talk a little bit more about additional services.
Are there any questions or discussion on this article? Hearing none. I'm sorry, could you please state your name and address?
Maria Kalinsky, 65 Liberty Street. I have two questions. One has to do with the line item regarding the Finance Committee for 5,200 reserve fund. For 2024, we had 100 grand reserved for the reserve fund, and that is again proposed for 2025. What is the purpose of the reserve fund?
Things will come up during the course of the fiscal year that can't wait for a town meeting to appropriate. We get into an accident with the fire truck, so we have to repair that. We can't wait for the next town meeting. Mass General Law has set up that the Finance Committee of the individual towns is eligible to have a reserve fund at their vote, in unanimous votes by the committee, to pay for these type of expenditures. If any of these expenditures are not used during the course of the fiscal year, it goes into free cash.
Excellent, thank you. And then my second question has to do with the information technology. 5,200 purchase of services and supplies. From 2022 to 2023, this increased by 19.7%. From 2023 to 2024, this increased by 38.5%. And then for 2024, it again increased by 38.5. However, for the year 2025, the increase is only 3.8%. Is that correct?
Last year, the town entered into an agreement with the local community. We were sharing IT costs. So we had to move from personnel budget, which was really passed out to other departments, to a line item for funding another town's department. Going forward, we'll just see inflationary increases to that cost. So what it does is it leverages us to give us better IT support by having access to greater resources. And, given the town's expansion, new buildings coming online, all new facilities coming online, equipment coming online, we think this is going to be a great deal for the town in the long run.
Okay, so 3.8% is accurate compared to almost 40%.
Correct.
And that is not including the capital
Correct.
expenses that are in the other articles?
Yeah, this is for ongoing technical support.
Thank you.
Any other questions or discussion? Go ahead.
Connor Thompson, 5 Bayberry Lane. I would just like to ask a question of the Finance Committee regarding the Board of Appeals and Land Acquisition Committee being rolled in together with the Planning Committee. All of those budgets were put together. However, on net, we're allocating around about $22,000 less for this budget compared to the prior year. Could you please explain how the Finance Committee reached this decision?
Finance Committee. Or
Sarah or Justin?
the Finance Director, or Ms. Wood.
Sarah Wood, Finance Director. The reason for the decrease is actually moving salaries and wages line item out of the Planning Department budget and into the Board of Health. So you'll see an offsetting increase in the Board of Health salaries and wages line item. This is to really account for where the administrative staff is actually doing the work within the departments.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Anybody else? Hearing nothing further, we're going to put this to a vote. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, say nay. The motion passes unanimously. Could we have Article 7 on the screen, please? Thank you. Article 7, Funds and Operating Budget Override, Finance Committee.
I move, and the Finance Committee recommends, that the town raise and appropriate the sum of $1,033,500 for supplemental funding for the following fiscal year 2025 omnibus budget, contingent upon the passage of a Proposition 2.5 override referendum under Mass General Law, Chapter 59, Section 21C, or take any other actions relative to Middleton School Departments, Instructional Intervention, $55,000, Specialist Programming, $160,000, Classroom Sections, $75,000, Student Support Personnel, $85,000, subtotals for the Middleton School Department, $375,000. Town of Middleton Police Department Personnel, 2, $156,500. Fire Department Personnel, 3, $282,000. Facility Maintenance Personnel, 1 half year, $50,000. Library Personnel, 2 part-time, $31,000. Health Insurance, Medicare for additional full-time personnel, $139,000. Subtotal, $658,500. Fiscal year 2025 grand total, $1,033,500. Grand total override, $1,796,500. This is, again, as we said, additional staffing that we're asking for. The issue that was brought before us by a number of departments, to the Select Board and to the Finance Committee, is we need to do things more. We need to provide more services. The library needs to support more people. The police department needs to do more investigation services. The fire department, a lot of the times, is short-staffed on shifts with the truck. The school departments need to provide additional educational services and support. These costs, given the current rate of inflation, we're not able to accommodate under Proposition 2.5 limitations. So this is why we are asking for this override. The benefit to the people is you will get additional services in all forms across the community. So I ask you for your support.
Any questions or discussion on Article 7? Hearing none, we're going to put this motion to a vote. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed say nay. Nay. We're going to do a card count. All in favor, you're going to say aye by raising your pink cards high. Keep them up until the teller counting your rows votes gives you permission to put your cards down. So all in favor, aye. Raise your cards up. All opposed, say nay, and raise your cards high. If everybody could please listen. The motion passes 208 to 59. Yes, you may. So now, moving on to Article, let's see, we're skipping quite a bit ahead here because of all the consent agendas. Articles. I believe, and the clerk will correct me if I'm wrong. Are we going to Article 15?
Yes, we are, Madam Moderator.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Article 15, Funds Capital Improvements. Finance Committee.
I move, and the Finance Committee recommends, that the town appropriate the sum of $1,477,952 from free cash to fund the capital improvements as printed in the town meeting warrant. This is on page 25 of the booklet. You'll see a number of projects that we have listed. The largest ones that's listed, the remediation and adding parking and sidewalks at Netsu Way, $483,000. We have $100,000 for upgrades to the traffic flow and parking lot at Fuller Meadow. We have $125,000 to add to the Chapter 90 money, in addition to Chapter 90 money the state gives us for road improvements, and then replace the sander for $257,517. And there's a number of smaller items. These are typical that we've done every year. Middleton is fortunate that we've had enough free cash to continue to invest in its people assets and maintain the people's assets. So I ask for your support.
Any questions, comments, discussion on Article 15? Hearing none, we're going to put it to a vote. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed say nay. The motion passes unanimously. Article 16 requests approval of a Masco debt exclusion. Is there a motion?
Trevor Currier on behalf of the Masconomet School Committee, 135 Forest Street. Madam Moderator, I move that the town approves the $5 million debt authorized by the Masconomet Regional School District for the purpose of paying costs of an owner's project manager and design services in connection with the roof, HVAC, and building management system construction at the high school and middle school building complex. including the payment of all costs incidental and related thereto, provided that the incurring of such debt shall be contingent upon the passage of a so-called Proposition 2.5 debt exclusion under General Law, Chapter 59, Section 21C.
Is there a second? Any questions or discussion on this article?
Thank you, Madam Moderator. Matt Alexander, 1 Mill Street, on behalf of Masco School Committee. Good evening, Middleton residents. Thank you for your time tonight. First, I just want to say thank you to the Finance Committee for your support in this article. And I just want to say that I wish we could have also garnered the support of the Select Board on this article. And although we respectfully view the problem through different lenses with different approaches, the Middleton School Committee members stand strongly behind Article 16, and this remains Masco's #1 capital improvement project going forward. The article I'm discussing tonight is a critical step towards addressing Masco high schools and middle schools' dire need for a new roof, new building management system, and new HVAC system. Here's why. The building's roof was installed in 2001 with an expected 20-year life. In 2019, the roof was repaired in order to extend its useful life by 5 years. Here we are today in 2024. Today we experience regular leaks when it rains. Our current HVAC system, the equipment ranges from 23 to 60 years old. It's beyond its useful life. Failure of the majority of the existing HVAC equipment is not a question of if, but when it will fail. In fact, within the past year, we had an HVAC unit catch on fire on the roof. And our BMS, our building management system, consists of controls for controlling our heating and ventilation systems. There's a mixture of aged systems which are obsolete, cannot be upgraded or integrated with new equipment, and only allow for the monitoring with no capability for equipment control. These systems are critical to our operation at our school. Failure of these boilers in the middle school, for example, would result in potentially weeks of forced school closures until repairs or replacements could be implemented, thereby disrupting the education of our students. Failure during the winter months would be catastrophic. Failures this year alone have costed Middleton residents $200,000 to patch back together. Moreover, they've disrupted academic operations at our schools. We're currently estimating an in-kind replacement would cost approximately $30 million, inclusive of this request. The costs are shared across the 3-member towns. It is possible it could be more than $30 million if we want to consider green options for the HVAC system. The first step towards addressing these issues is to hire an owner's project manager, an OPM, and begin design services. We're asking for debt authorization of $5 million associated with these tasks, which is based on 20% of the estimated construction costs. A little bit more about the $5 million. First, it's important to note that this is debt authorization, so we're asking to borrow up to $5 million, but we will only borrow and spend what is absolutely necessary for these tasks. Next, the $5 million debt authorization is spread across the 3-member towns, so our apportionment of these costs would be about $1.67 million. Finally, these funds would be used throughout the full period of performance, which is expected to be approximately 5 years, to replace all 3 failing systems. Our path forward. Today, we're asking you to help approve our part of the $5 million debt authorization. Over the next 2 years, we will be establishing a building committee comprised of residents from the 3-member towns. Then we'll go through the rigorous process of hiring an OPM, hiring a designer, performing an initial HVAC trade space, beginning design work, and determining a firm project price. During this period, we expect to spend approximately $2 million. Then in January 2027, we expect to become eligible to apply for the Massachusetts School Building Authorities, or MSBA's, Accelerated Repair Program. I want to share a couple details on that program with you. Given the Accelerated Repair Program's current scope, the district's current plan is to submit a statement of interest for both the high school and the middle school for a full roof replacement in January 2027. Once the current roof meets the qualifying age requirement of 25 years, and we have confirmed that we have met all other qualifications of the program as defined at the time of submission. We do not know if we will get approved. If we get approved, reimbursement is up to 40% of the cost associated with the roof. If we get approved, we will be appointed an OPM and a designer from the MSBA. Our approach is to try to hire an OPM and designer that is already in the bucket of approved designers and OPMs that the MSBA allocates. There is risk that we could incur up to $1 million of redesign for the roof. However, this would be well worth the approximately $4.4 million in reimbursement that we would be eligible for. Then in May 2027, we'd come back to the 3-member towns to approve the remaining funds for construction. And note that as we go along, there'll be other opportunities for reimbursements. We expect there to be other opportunities for reimbursements and incentive programs such as through National Grid. Finally, if we do not approve the article tonight, the school committee and administration, both who have spent excessive time discussing and establishing this plan, feel it would only delay addressing these critical needs. Together, we need to work to move this project forward for the benefit of our towns and to ensure that our students have a facility that is open and operational. Please help literally put a roof over our students' heads by supporting Article 16.
Any other discussion on this article? Mr. Cresta?
Thank you, Madam Moderator. Brian Cresta, 5 Ogden Lane, member of the Select Board. As was mentioned by Mr. Alexander, the Select Board on a 3-0 vote voted in opposition to supporting this article as it stands this evening. In fact, of 5 members of the FinCom that were here this evening, 2 also voted in opposition to this. I first want to start off by clearly stating that this is not an issue of opposition to a belief that there's a need. This is an opposition to the process, the potential sunk cost of $1 million, and I would argue potentially even larger, should Masconomet be successful in receiving dollars from the Massachusetts School Building Authority. The town, Middleton on their own, held 2 different conversations with the Massachusetts School Building Authority in the last week and a half, including one yesterday that several of our representatives from Masco were on the call. During that process, just for understanding, the Massachusetts School Building Authority is a state agency through tax dollars and bonded dollars provide reimbursements to cities and towns. This school, for example, was built with MSBA. The roof that we're asking later today to be funded for Fuller Meadow, we're proposing to go forward on the MSBA program. At that time, MSBA told us that they can remember one instance of a community actually going forward and hiring an OPM and hiring a designer in advance of an application to MSBA. Once out of hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of applications. So there is surely a potential that the $2 to upwards of $5 million that are being approved here through a tax override, a large portion of that could be for naught. You also heard this evening that there's a hope to hire an OPM that would be aligned with other OPMs at MSBA. MSBA told us yesterday, and these are the individuals that run the program, that there will be a need to hire a new OPM through MSBA, and any of the design work that has been done will have to start over again. Now, I think an argument could be made, well, maybe we should just do this project prior to MSBA approval because there's a need for a roof and heating systems. The earliest that a roof or a heating system and cooling system would be replaced at that school is starting in the summer of 2028. There is still enough time to actually have a better understanding, if not just the roof is eligible for reimbursement, but what we heard yesterday from the MSBA is that heat pump systems, which what we're proposing to put in our new municipal complex, Unfortunately, it's not an MSBA program for municipal complexes, but that heat pump system that the state has actually entertained consultants to help them understand if and how they want to fund heat pump systems in the future, rather than what has historically, including recently, been funded through the MSBA, which is fossil fuel systems, gas, oil, and otherwise. As I think we can all see, the state is moving towards alternative forms of energy and heating and cooling.
Focus this a little.
Sure. So, the scope of the article on this is, we believe at this point that, again, in a 3-0 vote with no opposition from the select board, no support from the select board, the reason that you should vote no on this evening is because MSBA is getting close to making a decision for their next grant round that we would be eligible to apply for in 2027 of heating, ventilation, and heat pumps being included. So it's not $600,000 or $1 million that could be wasted here. It could be multiple millions of dollars that would be wasted of taxpayer dollars by waiting 1 year to actually have MSBA make a decision. Now, they will tell you this will change their schedule. It will not change their schedule because construction will not begin until the summer of 2028. MSBA clearly told us in a meeting yesterday that it's about 16 to 18 months from when a project is approved to when construction would begin. Not a shovel in the ground, I guess a shovel in the roof. This was not a decision that the select board took lately. Our town administrator, our finance director, and again, with 0 opposition from the select board and 2 in opposition from the finance committee, have decided that now is not the time to actually approve the $5 million, that there is surely enough time when we can determine if there's more we're eligible for. If the state comes back and says we're not eligible for heat pumps, I would recommend at this town meeting at that point, fund the entire project along with Boxford and Topsfield, because there is a need for the roof. There's a need for the HVAC. There's a need for building management systems. But ladies and gentlemen, I would say, unfortunately, 20-something years of deferred maintenance has put us in this position where we are today. Thank you.
Hi, Rachel Nemeth from 29 North Main Street. I'm just wondering why this maintenance has been put off for 20 years, and I'm wondering how that's fiscally responsible. Because to my ear, it sounds like Masco is eating its dessert before its vegetables, or getting its nails done before it's putting the food on the table and the roof, literally the roof over its head. So my question is, if we give them even more money, how does that encourage fiscal responsibility, and where is all the money going that they have already have to run the school? Thank you.
I think that question is a little overly broad and beyond your scope. I'm not on again. Can you narrow, there we are. Where is she? Where's Rachel? Rachel, can you narrow the scope a little bit of your question? It's very broad.
Sorry, I'm not sure I could narrow it at all. It's a very broad question as to, I guess I'm just thinking giving more money to an institution that's not responsible with what it has. It's sort of a statement and a question that's in my mind.
Thank you. Mr. Renaud.
Good evening, Madam Moderator. Bill Renaud, Chair of the Building Committee, speaking on behalf of myself. My question is, where did this $5 million debt request come from? I don't see an OPM and designer cost being $5 million for a roof and HVAC project. I mean, 20% is awfully high. Do you have any backup as to where that number came from?
Mr. Alexander, are you going to respond to that?
Yes, please. Yeah, thank you for your question. So yes, 20% is an estimate of the $25 million construction costs, and looking at the MSBA, they have recommended 16% as an average for these types of projects. And so, with an average, you have some that are over, some that are under, And so as a debt authorization, we went to $5 million or 20%, knowing that the approach would be not to spend the full $5 million.
I was going to ask one more if I could.
Quickly. Is
Okay.
there other?
No, sure. So the other question I had is, you know, the $5 million, obviously that's expensive. Did you folks consider doing a feasibility study to determine like what the cost would be, rather than just coming here with, you know, a 20% number, which obviously is higher than what the MSBA is recommending?
Sure, great question. So we actually did a study back in 2018 called the Habib Report that studied a variety of different capital needs for the building. I believe the school committee at the time, although I wasn't on it, was set to start addressing some of those needs, and then COVID hit. There were some updates in 2019 through a roof estimate that was done. And then after COVID, the administration has reached out to many of their construction contacts to be able to do you know, sort of a refresh on the prices that we were given back in 2018, 2019.
The gentleman at the mic on my right.
Hi, my name is Joyce Lozinski from 13 Pleasant Street. I am a graduate of Masco. I was there for 6 years. I can tell you that roof and the HVAC system are not in good shape. Your proposition, this is directed at the select board, your proposition is that we wait until until the state is ready in 2027, and then we can start the process. And you say that that's because, oh, it wouldn't get started until 2028. But given that length of time, this would be starting in 2031. Can the kids really go that long without proper air conditioning and heating? I don't think so. Well, we meet again.
Hello, everybody. First and foremost, thank you for coming out tonight. I've actually skated by so far without saying a single word tonight, so that's pretty good for me. Joy, good to see you. A former intern in our office, so always good to see an alum. To answer your question, this has come up several times over, and I appreciate the collaboration from the folks over at Masco. We are in agreement that is a really long time to wait. And I think overall, folks are in agreement that, and not, to be clear, not necessarily the fault of the current administration, but historically, capital needs have been mismanaged at Masco, and I think there's agreement on that. That length of time isn't due to what the select board is recommending. And in fact, what is being recommended by the folks at Masco, you're gonna have to wait several years anyway to get a roof on there. You can't snap your fingers, get an OPM, get a designer, design it, and get a roof on. So I understand your timeline, 2031. It's not realistic. In fact, as Selectman Cresta recommended, if you wait until next year, you could turn around and with 18 months from next May, hit that construction date, if that answers your question. So that would put you in 2026, not 2031. But I share your concern. It should not go to 2031.
That is before the date where we would get the grants.
Sure. So as mentioned, if the folks of Middleton are in agreement and want to forego the opportunity for MSBA funding and you just want to go ahead and say, let's fund this thing, you can go ahead and do that now. But based on the current guidelines provided by Masco, I believe it's a year of 2027, they're recommending to maybe potentially start construction. The difference that you're really looking at in between those timelines, if you're waiting for MSBA, is maybe about 6 months. So you're risking about $1 million+ to gain a jump of 6 months. But I share your concern.
Okay.
Thank you.
Also, one other thing. Are the other towns in agreement on this? If we pull out while the other towns are still in, that's just delaying everything even further.
Well, you're here to consider what Middleton should do, not what the other towns are doing.
Well, then the roof wouldn't get built if we don't work with the other towns.
Trevor Currier, 135 Forest Street. So this article, because it's a debt authorization article, it requires 3 out of the 3 towns' votes, both at town meeting and at the ballot box. So Topsfield voted in favor at both their town meeting and at their town election.
We're not here to talk about elections. We're here to focus on the article that's on town meeting floor.
I hope that answered your question.
Okay, I'm just gonna.
Gary Dini from 18 Bellevue Ave. My question was not about the roof and the AC, the HVAC is probably needed. What's the life expectancy left on that building? How many years are we going to get out of that? Another 20, 30? To be able to put all that money in it.
Matt, can you speak to that? I guess there's nobody that's going to answer that.
No, the building itself, I mean, if you put all that money in it and you're only getting another 10, 15 years, I mean, if it's 20 or 25, yeah, that makes sense.
He's asking about the building.
Yes, ma'am. So I don't know if I have an exact answer for you. There's been no discussions over end of life of the building. The discussion has only been that these capital improvements would outlive the building itself. So I don't have an exact number for you. I apologize. But
When was that building built? I'm not too sure myself.
addition was 01.
01. So it's about half, say about half-life, maybe? Say 40 years if you get out of that, or that's about what other towns are getting out of those buildings?
I don't think I can speculate, sir.
Okay. Just checking. Thank you.
Sir.
Matt Ciccone, 8 Zaloga Way. I'd like to make a motion after this vote that we move to Article 23.
We're not. I'm not going to entertain that motion. Do you have anything to say on Article 16?
Can you at least explain to the audience why you won't entertain that?
We did a consent agenda that resolved 12 articles on the warrant. We're taking the rest of them in the order listed, and it's my expectation we're going to move through the remainder of them rather quickly once we get through this one. Do you have anything to say on Article 16?
Can we call for a vote on that, ma'am?
No. Do you have anything to say? You're wasting time arguing with me. Do you have anything to say on Article 16?
Annie Amelia, 7 Bishop Lane. So just a clarifying question, if we wait for state approval, the estimate is the only difference would be, it would be 6 months between the roof being built. And if the state denies our request, I don't know what the likelihood of that is. What's the difference in timing?
Let's try to keep these responses brief.
Sure thing. I won't speak on behalf of the Select Board's schedule, but I can tell you what we did within the capital planning committee.
Briefly, I believe you went through most of that already in your opening remarks.
So the fastest that we believe that we can execute our schedule is to get to construction mid-calendar year 27. So I won't speak on behalf of the Select Board and theirs, but that's what our administration can execute to.
Excuse me. If you have something to say, you need to go to a microphone and be recognized. And he was addressing somebody else's question.
If we wait for state approval, we're not waiting for state approval. That's in our natural course in our plan, right? So I won't speak on behalf of their suggested plan. The Middleton School, the Masco School Committee's plan outlays a process that is effectively getting to state approval beginning of calendar year 28. And I don't know how to respond otherwise.
I'm sorry, I couldn't see you sitting there. And I didn't realize you were the same person that was at the microphone because you had moved. I couldn't.
I can go. Sorry, I didn't mean to mess
No,
up.
you don't need to. We'll move on to the next.
If it doesn't get approved, if we wait for state approval and it doesn't get approved, what's the difference in the timeline? That's the question versus that.
It would, Trevor Currier, 135 Forest Street. It would include all the work we're doing right now. So this basically 2-year process leading us up to 2027. This will give us the firm numbers, the design, what type of HVAC we're going to use, so we'll really have our feet, we'll hit the ground running, per se, if the state does not grant us reimbursement.
Costa Printakis, 7 River Road. Just be aware that this ask does not actually fix anything. It is for plans and designs, and for things to be fixed, a much larger ask will happen down the road. So unless you're prepared to vote for that larger number, think twice about voting for this smaller number. Thank you.
Thank you. We're going to hear one more comment, then from Mr. Cresta, and then I can't even talk anymore. I anticipate we're going to bring this to, sir?
Hi, Connor Thompson, 5 Bayberry Lane. I am 18. This is my first time here. That also means that this roof is older than I am. I am a graduate of Masconomet Regional Middle School and High School. While I was there, I was involved in student governments for all of my years and was elected as the executive vice president of the entire thing. And I am aware of the 2017 Habib Facilities Assessment, as I have personally met with Facilities Director Doug Batchelder a few times to talk about capital projects at Masco. We the students were aware of that our building was frankly falling apart. And I can attest to the fact that the roof is leaking and falling apart. I can point to multiple places where it does. The stairwells in particular are the worst. And it's not just the roofs. Pipes blew out during the 2020 to 2021 winter. It is absolutely scorching in the summer on the 3rd floor. Masco is a building that desperately needs repairs. And I ask all of you, please, for the students, for my friends who are still there, please vote in favor of this, of Article 16. Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome to the town meeting. Mr. Cresta, you have something very brief.
Yes, something very brief, Madam Moderator. So, first off, a modern rubber roof should last 30 to 35 years. The roof that we're going to be speaking about next is older than this roof that needs to be replaced. But in terms of schedule, the question you were asking about schedule. Ground is being broken, trees were cut down today on a project in a shorter time frame from when approval happened to when shovel was in the ground to the time frame that they're proposing for a roof and an HVAC system that will sit on the roof. No buildings, no foundations, no excavations, no electrical, no plumbing, no building. So the reality is, the argument that the select board has made that if next year we wait until we have information from MSBA on the actual HVAC system, we could actually save millions of dollars and not be expending most of the $5 million that's been proposed. So again, I'm going to ask one last time to please oppose this as it sits. Thank you.
All right, we're going to bring this to a vote. Mr. Carrier, do you feel compelled to say one more thing, and is it going to be 5 seconds?
5 seconds. Trevor Currier, 135 4th Street, and I think that would be the case if we knew what we were building yet. Madam Moderator, we don't yet have the plans that need to be done through the building committee process.
Thank you. Hurry up. No.
I hear the groaning. And so the way that part of the answer there is we don't know. The way you know is you have a up-to-date feasibility study, not a feasibility study that was done in 2018, pre-COVID. You've seen what inflation has done. That data is useless. On the town side of things, I wouldn't allow anything to roll through the capital plan that's a year or two older. It's just not reliable data. So thank you.
Thank you. All right, let's bring this to a vote. I don't know why my microphone is sending me hints. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, say nay. Nay. The motion fails. You're questioning 7 people.
I rescind mine.
I'm happy to do
I
it.
rescind it. Thank you, though.
Are you sure?
Yep.
I'll do it if you want.
Raise your hand. You got 7?
If 7 people question the call of the moderator, we'll do a hand count. Stand up. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, we're going to do a hand count. Get the tellers.
Tellers?
All right, is everybody ready? Everybody have their cards in place? All in favor say aye by raising your cards. Keep them up until the tellers tell you to put them down. So all in favor, aye, cards up. All right, everybody. All opposed, say nay by raising your card. Tellers, again, same procedure. After you count the row, please let the voters know they can put their cards down. Arms get tired. All right, everybody. Thank you for your patience. I appreciate it. The vote was 57 in support of the motion and 207 against. So the motion fails. Turning to Article 17, which funds capital needs for Masco, is there a motion? Finance Committee.
Article 17, I move that the town appropriate the total sum of $135,586 from free cash for the town's share of Masconomet Regional High School fiscal year 2025 capital needs.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any question or discussion on this article? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed say nay. The article passes unanimously. Article 18 appropriates funding for the Fuller Meadow Roof Design Project. This requires a 2/3 vote. Is there a motion? Okay, wait a minute. Who's making the motion, Rick? Was that you? Seconded by Michelle?
I'll make it.
It's been made. Oh, you're going to make it now?
Yes.
All right.
I move that the town of Middleton appropriate the amount of $300,000 for the purpose of paying costs of a feasibility study for the roof replacement at the Fuller Middle School, 143 South Main Street, Middleton, Massachusetts, including the payment of all costs, incidentals, or related thereto, and for which the town may be eligible for grant from the Massachusetts School Building Authority. Said amount to be expended under the direction of the School Building Committee. To meet this appropriation, the treasurer, with the approval of the select board, is authorized to borrow said sum under and pursuant to the Mass General Law, Chapter 44, or pursuant to any other enabling authority. The town acknowledges that the MSBA grant program is non-entitlement discretionary program based on the need as determined by the MSBA, and any costs of the town incurs in excess of any grant that may be appropriated and received by the MSBA shall be for the sole responsibility of the town, and the amount of the borrowing authorized pursuant to this vote shall be reduced by any grant amounts set forth in the feasibility study agreement that may be executed between the town and the MSBA.
I guess we'll try this again for the record. Who is seconding the FinCom's motion?
I'll second.
John, FinCom seconding their motion. Great, thank you. Any questions or discussion on this article, which again, I will remind everyone requires a 2/3 vote? Hearing none. Thank you.
Hi.
Hi.
Julie Solzinski, 13 Pleasant Street. Huge supporter of the schools, love that school. My kids went there, but I have a couple questions. More concerning to, we're voting on this 300,000, but on page 48, in the next 3 years, we're spending a total of 7.4 million on Fuller Meadow School. And I was wondering, what year was that school built? How much is the building worth? Like, and I might be completely off base, but that seems like a lot for, I think, an older building that we keep repairing? I don't know.
Justin, do you want to speak?
Maybe my numbers are totally.
I don't know. Michelle, is anybody here from the school?
It says 300,000 for the roof in 2025, but 2.2 million for the roof in 2026, among other things, so. It's not even the roof. Okay, but then how do we have all these other numbers? Are those just guesses?
Yep. Somebody's going to address
Okay,
the
great.
question.
Thank you.
so
Sorry.
much.
Hi, good evening, Madam Moderator. I'm Steve Greenberg. I'm the Assistant Superintendent of Operations for the elementary schools. So the number that you just mentioned, the 7 million, that's, oh, I'm sorry. Is it because I'm too short? All right. So the 7 million, when you look at that, that's multiple capital projects that we schedule over the span of 5+ years. But when we talk about the roof, it is an estimate. And so with the 300,000, that is for the feasibility study first, and then we ease into design. We've put in an application with the MSBA for funding under the Accelerated Repair Program, and we're waiting to see if they will be partnering with us. When we move forward, the estimate, all right, when we talk about this, and we haven't done the feasibility study yet, we haven't done bidding yet, you're looking at about $2 million for about 30,000 square feet. The portion of the roof that was not replaced back in, 2015, because it wasn't old enough yet. Okay?
So I do recall we placed.
I'm sorry.
Previously, we replaced just part of it.
Yes, ma'am, that was the original section. The section that we're talking about is the 96-2000 section. And when we did the original section, that portion of the roof, about 30,000 square feet, was not eligible to be replaced under the ARP, so we did not apply to have it replaced.
Okay, so just one follow-up question. On the 300,000 feasibility study, is that just for the roof? Or is that going to also look at, is it worth putting another $2.2 million in windows?
So
is it going to look at the whole school?
The 300,000 would be feasibility study, OPM, and then design. So it's all of that.
All of it, okay.
And when I say design, it takes us through bidding.
Okay, for all of the things, not just the roof?
No, just the roof. Just the roof.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other discussion on this article? Hearing none, we'll try a voice vote and see how it goes. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed say nay. Nay. The article passes, I'll call it by a 2/3 majority. You want to count? Kate, do you think I need a count for that?
Do you think bond count?
Okay.
No, what they're borrowing? Okay. So any borrower will want a hand count from me, certified. I mean, we have her to. And we have passed that.
Okay, so what are we next?
We are 22.
22. See to the gentleman there that wanted to move the article. We're almost there. Is he still here? No, we're not.
We're just calling 22.
Article 22 permits the town to accept certain property easements. Is there a motion, Mr. Garber?
Hi, Jeff Garber, 22 Meeting House Square. I move that the town authorize the select board to accept easements and property fronting on South Main Street and Boston Street for the purpose of implementing intersection improvements, and to authorize the select board to enter into any agreements necessary to facilitate such convenience and improvements. So what this is, the Angelicus project.
Jeff, wait a minute. We need a second.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Erickson has seconded it.
So the Angelicus project, in negotiations and agreements with the developer, he's agreed to give easements to the town on Boston Street and South Main Street. So eventually, if we choose to widen the road, we'll have the land to do it. It's not any of the money to do the work. It's just the granting of the land. So we need this body to authorize us to accept. We're not taking the land, we're getting the easement on the land, so that when the time comes that we want to, if and when we want to widen those roads, we'll be able to do it. And the plan is to apply for some state funding to make that happen.
This also requires a 2/3 vote. Any questions, discussion, comments on Article 22? Mr. Currier.
So if we, thank you, Madam Moderator, Trevor Currier, 135 4th Street. So if we don't get state funding, how is that project funded of the construction?
This question is, wait a minute. This question is just about acceptance of an easement. We're not talking about construction. Do you want to rephrase your question? No.
I'm as tall as that other guy. Rich Benevento, 56 Peasley Circle. I'm also a member of the Zoning Board of Appeals. I'm not speaking on behalf of the Zoning Board of Appeals. The project is still in the process. In order to, for the town to accept this, or if the town accepts this easement, it provides the land to make improvements along Boston Street and along South Main Street. Does anybody in here think the traffic's okay?
No, you're not polling, no.
Okay, sorry.
No.
In any
This
case.
isn't a zoning board of appeals, meaning you're not the chair here.
That's right. So, in any case, by accepting this easement, it allows the town to have that ability at some point in the future to make the improvements of widening the roadway and providing improved traffic.
Mr. Currier, he opened the door. Go ahead. You can ask that question if you want.
If state grant funding is not provided to us, how is this project funded?
Thank you, Madam Moderator. Brian Cresta, 5 Ogden Lane. There are several ways that this could be funded. A Mass Works grant that the town is in the process of developing for submission. Oh, I'm sorry. I've never been accused of being quiet, so sorry about that. There are several ways that this could be funded. One of them is a Mass Works grant that the town is actually in process right now in developing during the upcoming Mass Works grant program. That's actually a $2.5 million grant that we're requesting. In addition, folks may not actually realize that intersection is actually a state intersection. Now, a little bit further down the road is our intersection, but that is our intersection. There is also possibilities that funding could be put on state TIP programs, which is the Transportation Improvement Program that is funded both through state bonded funds as well as federal U.S. Department of Transportation funds. A perfect example is the intersection that was done years ago at Essex Street
Mr.
and
Cresta,
Forest
could you-
Street. But there are
Mr. Cresta.
multiple opportunities to fund this.
Thank you. We're not going to spend any more time talking about funding of future projects related to this easement. Mr. Garber.
So this easement is pretty much forever. So it doesn't mean if we don't get funding, this doesn't happen in the next year, 2 years, 5 years, it could happen 10 years from now. This body might want to fund it. It's not like it has to be done as part of that Angelica's project. The project could be completed, the easement is forever. So there's plenty of opportunities to figure out how to do this and where the money comes from. But without the easement, there's no discussion.
All right, we're going to bring this to a vote. We'll try a voice vote here as well. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, say nay. Nay. The article passes by an overwhelming 2/3 vote. The motion, rather. We have one more article. Article 23, which amends the town zoning bylaws pursuant to the MBTA community zoning legislation. Is there a motion?
Brian Carroll, 16 Upton Hills Lane, Chairman of the Planning Board. I move that the town amend the Middleton zoning bylaw and map by adding section 8.8 MBTA Communities Multifamily Overlay District, modify section 2.2 Overlay Districts, modify section 9.5 Site Plan Review, modify section 10. Definitions, and that non-substantive changes to the numbering of this bylaw be permitted in order so that it can be in compliance with the numbering format of the Code of Middleton. With said amendments outlined on file with the town clerk as well as shown in Exhibit A in the town meeting warrant.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I have a second.
Thank you. Any questions or discussion on Article 23? Really? If you want to. No, I know. But we're going to start with either the town. Do you want to go first? No. We're going to have.
We're gonna let the true definitions of what's going on.
I'm going to start with our town administrator, who thought he didn't have much of an opportunity to speak tonight, so we're going to give him more time.
I was saving it for the end, so I appreciate all your patience.
Saving the best for last.
Of course. We'll get right to it for the sake of your time. So real quickly, I just want to rehash, for those of you who don't know, what the MBTA Communities Act, where it came from. So the Commonwealth had passed a piece of legislation, the MBTA Communities Act, that required that 177 MBTA communities, of which Middleton is one, it's an adjacent community, comply with several different factors. So among them is they need to create at least one district of reasonable size, in their own words, in which multifamily housing is permitted as of right. It cannot have age restrictions and shall be suitable for families with children. It must have a minimum gross density of 15 dwelling units per acre, and it must be partly located within a half mile from a commuter rail, subway, ferry, or bus station as applicable. They laid out specific requirements, and so the ones that apply to Middleton are a minimum multifamily unit capacity of 750 units and a minimum land area of 50 acres. So the first question that comes up oftentimes is, does this mean Middleton has to build 750 units of housing? The answer is no. The community is required to zone to accommodate for that. And so the approach that Middleton took, in my opinion, was a smart one. It was steered through the planning board to allow for various opportunities for public discussion. That included a public meeting in November of 23, another in January of 24, all culminating in a public hearing on March 12th of this most recent year. The approach, and Mr. Carroll, the chair of the planning board, is going to touch on the planning board's approach more. The approach was to try to find a way to implement this law in such a way that minimally impacted, if at all impacted, the town of Middleton. And so that was the approach. For me personally, I don't get a vote, but I'll tell you, I feel like this was a little one size fits all. And I think that's how people felt. So we were trying to find a way in which we could reach compliance that would minimize effect, and we would comply in such a way that would take away the state's opportunity to have any recourse. And so if this is something the people of Middleton determine they want to fight, there's an opportunity to get into a lawsuit with the state. If we comply in this way that doesn't really allow any housing to be built, it doesn't allow an opportunity for the state to address us in that fashion. So one important piece is the area outlined as the Ferncroft area, and I'm not going to steal it all, Brian, so I'll let you get into it. But that 750 unit requirement really spooks people, and it should, because for a town like Middleton, that's ridiculous. But the other piece I'll say is, for a town like Middleton, hovering around a population of 10,000 or just under, we're the only community of that demographic that has a high-rise tower. And so we lucked out in terms of an approach. You see communities like Rockport, for example, pop up in the news a lot, but they don't have an area like that in town where they can point to and say, hey, there's already density. So that 750 requirement, you can actually apply the 423 units that exist today to that number, which would mean the delta there is 327 units. So the goal really there was to lessen the impact. With that said, I think you've heard enough from me. Listen to the guy that lives here. Thank you.
Okay, here we go. So I'll try to summarize this quickly as to how we got to where we are from the planning board's perspective. The planning board held several meetings over many months, as was mentioned, many of them public, on the issue of the MBTA Communities Act. We hired a consultant, paid by Massachusetts grant dollars, I might add, to assist in developing a plan of compliance with minimal effect on Middleton. Fortunately, the new state requirements will not find a really good fit in Middleton. Dense housing units typically require a sewer or multi-million-dollar septic processing system. Quite simply, this broad stroke legislation, without much consideration for towns mostly on wells and septic, cannot be applied to us without great expense. Additionally, we have no transit stops where we could place the new zoning that they want. This offered Middleton an opportunity to sidestep the legislation while complying with it and continuing to get state grants. Given the wetlands and other restrictions, there were only two really suitable locations where we could accommodate the new law without impacting Middleton: Bostick or Ferncroft. Bostick was impractical. It's not near a sewer. The land has a large amount of impurities on it. Thank you very much, Bostick. And more traffic on 62 would appear, leading inevitably into 114, which is our favorite parking lot now. Ferncroft had an amount of space, the proper amount of space. It had proximity to a sewer connection and proximity to major roads such as 1 and 95, which in Middleton is about as good as it gets. Additionally, housing is already there, as mentioned, such as the towers, and that makes construction rather impractical as well as unprofitable. In selecting the Ferncroft area, we also helped better ensure a minimal, if not negligible, effect on the Middleton school system. Currently, there are 0 school-aged children in the towers, and only 10 of them in the townhomes if they're counted. As an aside, data shows that Middleton schools are running at about 80% of capacity now today anyway. Finally, all the existing units, as mentioned again, in the newly zoned area will be counted towards our quota set forth by the MBTA Communities Act. This seems to be the way for us to sidestep, as I said, what the state wants us to do, regardless of their lack of observation of what kind of town we really are. Speaking for the planning board strongly encourages the passage of Article 23.
Thank you. I hope so.
Brian Brian Cresta, 5 Ogden Lane. The Select Board supports this article. In previous discussions and other articles, there's been discussions about funding and who's going to pay for things like intersection improvements. When this legislation was passed by the legislature, actually on January 6, 2021, there was not a requirement in the legislation that states that grant dollars could be pulled back. That was a decision that was made by the current administration at the governor's office, and they have the authority to do so because those are state dollars. And the decision was made that certain grants would no longer be eligible for those cities and towns that are required to enact the MBTA zoning so-called activity. I just want to give you an update on $6.75 million in grant applications that the town is presently in process of either developing or will be submitting within the next, I believe, year or two. The first is what I had mentioned earlier, the aforementioned MassWorks grant. This is a public-private infrastructure improvement for the intersection of Route 114 or South Main Street in Boston Street. Thank you for your previous approval for the easement. That now actually gives us the ability to not just have new lights put there, but actually new turning lanes, new lanes that would actually move traffic through that intersection further. That MassWorks grant would also move over to have improvements to the intersection of Route 62 Maple Street and 114. I think we all agree that's probably the biggest bottleneck in the town of Middleton. Secondly, there is a MVP grant, which is a it's a waterworks improvement. We are applying for $1 million for stormwater improvements for the municipal building project, where we broke ground just today on removing trees. That $1 million grant that we're applying for, and I believe is appropriate for us to apply for, would be $1 million less that is paid for by the taxpayers, including what this town meeting previously approved. You had heard earlier that we were more than $1 million under budget. This would bring us to closer to almost $3 million under budget if we receive that grant. A third grant we are in the process of applying for is the Mass Downtown Initiative. That is a smaller $50,000 grant to look at both our center of town, but also on North Main Street, the section of town that seems to be forgotten, and to support the town in ways that we can have improvements there that are appropriate to what the town would want. Last, an additional one is a Brownfields Redevelopment Fund. Years ago, the town of Middleton was forced to take land on School Street, the old glue factory. That is a Brownfields property. Anybody drive by there, take a look at that building that we recently put a fence? I live over near there, and I can't tell you how many kids I have chased out of that building. We approved funding to actually put a fence around it. We'd like to tear the building down. It's going to cost north of $200,000.
Mr. Cresta, let's focus.
And then the
it's
last
getting
grant
late.
is a Housing Works grant of $3 million for infrastructure improvements at the existing Memorial Hall project. As we mothball that building, I do not want to see it sit boarded up. I want something to be done, but without a cost being borne by the town. That's $6.75 million in grant dollars that we are in process of applying for. We absolutely will not receive if a no vote happens on the MBTA. I personally believe the courts will rule on this later this year, but in the meantime, without action upon this, we are walking away from improvements on 114, $1 million for the building projects, a building that could be torn down on School Street, improvements on North Main Street, and $6.75 million. Thank you.
Thank you. The person at the microphone on my right.
Thank you. I am Joyce Lozinski, 13 Pleasant Street. I have lived in this town for 19 years, seen many developments, many changes. I also have some cred. I'm an Eagle Scout here. I built a rest stop on the Middleton Rail Trail. I led our troop through COVID where we gained members. And I know I'm about to make some enemies, so that's why I'm prefacing with that. All right, so all of these projects that we're hoping to beg the state for money for, such as, the Masco roof you all just overwhelmingly voted against, that money is going to go bye-bye, okay? We pay tax to the state for the MBTA. We don't get bus or train services, so we get it back in the form of investment from the state. We aren't going to not be able to pay that tax, but we still need to do those things that the investment would pay for. So we would have to all raise property taxes. Who here is in favor of that?
Okay, again, you're not asking for feedback from the town, from the membership here. Just make your comments.
Okay. Yes, sorry. I think it is ridiculous that you are all that concerned about your, property values if God forbid, poor people are let in your town, that
And
you
again,
are willing
I
to screw
caution
yourselves
you,
over.
wait a minute. Okay, everybody, I caution you to be civil and respectful and not critical of your neighbors.
Yes, I know. I know I never will be able to afford to own a home, so I can't really care. I'm out of here.
Bill?
Bill Renault, 19 Park Ave. Just kind of building on Mr. Cresta's points about the grant funding. But the
Without
initially
being repetitive.
I'm not being repetitive. I have another point, actually.
Good.
Yeah. So there were 12 grant programs that was initially discussed as, would be ineligible if this doesn't pass. Since the initial round, when they said the 12 grant programs, they've added a 13th. So it's not just the programs that we know today. This is future grant programs as well. I just really think it doesn't make a lot of sense financially for us to do that. Looking at what the work that the planning board has done, I commend them on finding a location that really will have minimal, if no impact to the community. And I would urge your support for Article 23. Thanks.
Thank you.
Natasha Bansfield, 3 White Lane. I know everybody wants to get to the voting, so I'll keep it quick. I've done a bit of research on the numbers behind the funding. I found that we have not gotten MassWorks funding in 10 years. We've been denied twice. I understand the thought of funding for different projects. It sounds good to me because it will keep my taxes lower, but I'm a believer in speaking up when something's wrong, and I feel that if this passes, there'll be something even scarier coming down the road. The carrot will get smaller, the stick will get bigger. We need to say no. Thank you.
Sir.
Gary Deeney, 18 Bellevue Ave. Some of the stuff that was just mentioned I was going to say, but if this parcel meets the requirement for the MBTA, will there be any further expansion down the line of, say, Bostick? I know it can't be now, but so that's it, just that piece of land?
Hi. The legislation that was put forth basically says it's the 50 acres, and there's a big period after that. We don't expect anything else after that. Most towns, especially towns like Middleton, we don't have it. It's not going to happen.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes.
Debbie Krim, 8 Dearborn Way, Ferncroft area. So I guess you know where I stand on this. But it's not even for that. It's for the idea that we're selling our souls. I think that this is the kind of thing where the state government is telling this town how we have to handle our own zoning. And it's not up to the state, it's up to Middleton to determine how we want to handle our zoning. So I don't think we should be giving that away easily with the idea that there's money in the future. It seems to me that there's something really unethical about what the state is saying, since as far as I know, there's no MBTA even in Middleton. I'm an artist with a studio in the city. I always say the only way to get from Middleton to downtown Boston is on a cow. So anyway, I think that we're selling our souls, and I hear what you guys are saying with the money part, but the future of this is not good with us turning over our power to the state.
Just as a response to that, for starters, the law states that, let's assume for the moment that somebody over there who owns property decides to sell, and a developer comes along, that developer has a choice of using the new zoning that we're voting on tonight or the old zoning. It is not mandatory. What we are doing is we are sidestepping and gently giving the American greeting to the state by saying, yeah, we'll comply, we'll still take your money, but we're not going to do what you want us to do because we don't have the room to do it. We don't have the sewer, we don't have the MBTA buses or the trains. Where are they? We're apparently an MBTA adjacent community. So all we're really doing is we're allowing them to think that we're selling our souls, but we're not. We're actually just continuing to take money from them without much of anything else happening.
Thank you.
Hi, Jeff Applestein, 7 Woodbury Lane. And what you just said is possible, but builders build. And if they can build 2 houses, they'll build 2. If they can build 4, they'll build 4. I mean, that's what they do, that's their job. But what it sounds like is that we are being threatened by the state. The state is trying to influence how our town develops, how it grows, how we live, how we raise our kids, how we interact with each other, and that's really up to us. Because if we give in to the state because of their threats on them withholding money, where does it end? Because here we are today. It's unbelievable that where we are right now is the state telling us that we have to do this zoning, or they're going to sue us, or they're going to withhold money from us. At some point, like other towns are involved in this, you have to fight, and you have to push back on the state telling us what we have to do for zoning and what not, and we have to make a stand. And if we make the stand now and we coordinate with other towns that are doing the same thing, fight them, they'll have to back off. But if we don't and we give in now and other towns don't, then what we're trying to do is just hope for the best. And that's just not this town. I've lived here a long time, and it's just not something that I've known to grow up in and around this town and raise my kids. This is something that's up to us, and we should decide how we zone and not the state.
This administration, the administration that runs the state is here now. And tomorrow, when we blink, it'll be gone. It'll be somebody else's administration. And things will change, just like things always change. They want A, then they want B. Then they want C, then they want D. Right now, they're going after the big cities and towns with all the tax dollars to spend. And because they've got lines of trains or buses or what have you going through them. We are cannon fodder. And so what we do is we sidestep the cannonball and let everybody else fight the fight, because to fight this in court will cost us an additional millions of dollars. Milton may have that kind of tax base to be able to do it. We do not. We struggle when we start talking about overrides for $1.3 or whatever million dollars. We don't want to do that.
Thanks, Brian. Peter, did you want to say something?
Peter Moon, 57 Park Ave. I guess you did just kind of take some of my thunder, because Milton is getting sued right now for this. And the fact of the matter is, whether we like it or not, which I'm in agreement with a lot of people, I'd prefer not to have this happen, the fact of the matter is the state can do this and make this requirement. And if we don't comply, aside from the grants we won't get, we could be sued by, just like Milton is. So it seemed practical that if we could do this, which there's already a bunch of housing units in this one place, it's a way to just have to be able to avoid the state suing us.
I'm starting to hear repetitive remarks. If anybody has something additional or insightful or helpful to offer, I'm sure everybody would like to hear it. Select Board, FinCom, voters.
Okay, Anthony Dakotas, 9 Woodbury Lane.
I did not call on you yet.
Oh, but didn't you just say if I had something new?
I didn't say
I apologize.
specifically Mr. Dakotas.
I apologize.
But I was actually, she's been waiting a long time, so I'm going to give her the opportunity first, then I'll get right to you next.
No problem.
Thank you, Rachel Nemeth, 29 North Main Street.
So 3A is actually an unlawful law. It's vague and it's arbitrary. So I believe those who understand law expect that Middleton will prevail in its lawsuit. We have the opportunity to vote no now. If we want to reconsider after we see what happens to Middleton, brave Middleton, we can reconsider this vote. I would strongly urge my fellow neighbors to vote no now. A yes vote would not guarantee us the money that they're holding over our heads. If we vote no and we keep our zoning rights, we are signing a blank check for an empty promise because 3A is written so concisely that there is no guidelines to tell us when we have complied or not. The guidelines are, they're written so that they can be changed at will. So if we comply now, they can simply rewrite it so that we're not in compliance. And if you understand the long-term view, you know what's coming down the road. It is A, and then it's B, and then it's C. We will lose our control over our town. We will lose our rights. The cost, because they're not going to accept paper compliance. The strategy of let's put it where they can't do anything with it, they will not accept that. You can expect that. You can look at the legislation that's upcoming and see that they have.
Can you wrap up and?
Yes, you can see they have many plans. So please don't sign a blank check for an empty promise that will never happen.
I'm going to go to Mr. Dakotas, and then I'm going to ask Attorney Fedorov if she wants to address some of the legal arguments very briefly to see. Mr. Dakotas.
All right, Anthony Dakotas, 9 Woodbury Lane, although the previous person did say a lot of what I was going to say, but this isn't just about this issue. And this, what I would urge my fellow neighbors here today is, this is where we can control what comes down the road, right? Our country's in tremendous debt. Our state is in tremendous debt. But what we do here in Middleton is the only thing that we control. It stops now. It stops with us. If we say yes now, this is just going to be another thing that comes right down the pike tomorrow. So, and when we do sue, if we're in a lawsuit, sounds like we will be, we're not alone. There's many other brave cities and towns that took this step. I say we don't turn our backs on them. We fight and we push back.
Rick Cassiotis, 201 Forest Street. I appreciate the bravery of everyone here, and I'm certainly not the last person in line that wants to push back on the system. But I distinctly remember this town being the same kind of talk, the same kind of thing from the state. It was the thing up on the hill on 20 Manning Ave. And everybody stood up and got together hand in hand and said, we're going to fight this and we're going to beat it. The jail's there. Town lost. We didn't get anything, but a lot of, bad taste and denial for different monies and grants for a couple decades afterwards, because the legislatures who were in power then control the purse strings thereafter. So it's all up to the town to vote for it, but there's some history in town that the last time we tried to do that, it cost a whole ton of money, years to pay off. I mean, it's a nice idea, but think about it. The risk of having to, have some building up there, which would be more high-rises like they are, that's the trick of the zoning, is the risk you take with money that built your rail trail, money that fixed the North Liberty Street Bridge in an emergency, didn't come out of your money. Money that's doing the Peabody Street Bridge right now. Just saying. That's less of it. More of it is the history is this town did stand up to the state once before. So I hope there's enough people here that remember what happened.
It is my inclination not to take any more comments and call for a vote.
We've been waiting. We pay property taxes and we'd like to speak. You raised our taxes 40%
Me?
in the past year, the town. So I think we have paid for the privilege right to speak.
I will grant you a brief opportunity as long as it's not repetitive.
Well, it might overlap, but I also have a new question.
We've heard a lot of comments. Many of them have
Okay,
been
I have a new
themes.
piece. I do have a new piece. My name is Marisa DeFranco, 18 Ogden Lane. I'm a practicing attorney, so a couple of points. Just because you might lose doesn't mean you don't fight. If we did that, I've represented people in asylum cases, and there were 3 women that were told by 8 attorneys that they had a 5% chance of winning their case of sex trafficking.
We're not talking about other cases. I would
can I
focus.
please speak?
No,
I'm talking about the right to fight.
Please focus on the MBTA article.
This is a persuasive environment. I'm saying that people tell you you will lose. It's not always true. You can win. And only because we lost once is that all the fight we have in us. And so you capitulate. When the woman before me spoke very well, I won't repeat what she said because she was right on about the law. And I have a question. I'd like to know, before we're going to vote on this, I'd like the specifics of why you think this is a weak or strong case. I'd like some citations to the cases of why you think Middleton might lose or might win. I mean, we deserve a legal argument to tell us the benefits or the strengths of a case of fighting this. And Middleton is the only town in the entire Commonwealth that is fighting this. They should not have to stand alone. And like the woman before us, and you can only you can't sidestep cannon fodder forever. This current administration, someone made the comment that there will be another one. Yes, it could be much, much worse.
It is
so you
not,
stop it now.
Hold the applause.
So I persuade my fellow townspeople.
Okay, you've had your say, you've asked a
to
question.
vote against.
Our town council is not responsible for briefing Milton's legal
No, not
argument.
Milton, for us.
No, your question was you wanted her to brief
That was
Milton's
an example.
legal argument and provide citations.
Okay, that's an example.
That's
Writ large,
not what she's going to do.
Then I'd like.
She is here. Let me talk.
Madam,
No.
I am a taxpayer, and I would like a legal argument why
And I will
Middleton.
rule
Let me
you-
rephrase. I will
I
rephrase.
will rule you out of order.
I would
You
like the
speak
town
at-
council.
You don't want me to ask you to leave. You speak at my discretion.
Then I will file a complaint.
Go right ahead.
I would like a legal argument why Middleton is weak or strong on this issue.
And she will speak to a question about Middleton. You asked about Milton, and you asked for citations about Milton, and I'm telling you, let me talk. She is not going to provide that. She will briefly speak to Middleton.
That's right. Let me clarify. You misapprehended my question. I want the record to show you misapprehended my question. You misapprehended my question. I used it as an example.
Don't put me in a position of asking you to be removed. Now, you made your point. Attorney Federoff is going to address what she believes is appropriate. I would ask you to return to your seat and respectfully listen to her. Thank you. Attorney Federoff.
So the question of the constitutionality of the legislation is fairly clear. I think the argument in favor that it is constitutional is supported by a lot of history. So the Home Rule Amendment, which allows towns to create legislation for themselves, it's not unheard of that it's overruled. So for example, the Dover Amendment is an example of that, where you can have a church located in any area of the town regardless of the zoning. So that aspect of the challenges to the legislation is we think pretty strong in favor of the state. The weaker argument, and no one can say what a court will determine, but the weaker argument is where the Attorney General is suing towns who have failed to pass the legislation or the zoning bylaws. That is unlikely to be successful in our opinion. What is common also is the right of the state to control their funds. So they hold the purse strings and encourage compliance using funds. This also is not uncommon. If the example that I give is the federal government, when they wanted to make the drinking age 21, withheld money for highway improvements. And quickly, all the states fell in line.
Thank you.
Sir.
Hello, my name is Herman Lemon Creaky. I live at 13 Kenny Road. I think we're missing the 800-pound gorilla in the room. The real problem is Massachusetts has a shortage of homes by about 200,000. That is the real problem. It is not about the state taking away your rights. Unless we can build homes in the ocean, we have to put them on land. The real problem is that young people cannot afford to live in Massachusetts. They are going to leave. When they leave, I'm going to give you a brief view of the future. We are going to have old people in Massachusetts and not enough young people. So the taxes that you are complaining about now, is the situation is going to get even more acute. We have to find a way to have young people living in our communities, whether we agree with it or not. I do understand you don't want the town to change. It has already changed. It used to be 500 people with cows. Now we're 10,000 people with cars. We have changed. We can change again. Let us go boldly where other towns are not. If we lose this funding, it is not going to be just for this year. It is going to be for every year that we do not comply. We can't give Masco a new roof, but we are going to get legal fees to fight this issue. If the law changes, we have nothing to worry about. But I am deeply concerned about the young people in our town not having somewhere to live because people are afraid of losing their control to the government. The government is there for a purpose. The Massachusetts legislature is there for a purpose. We need to come together as a town for the young people. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to take these. We have two more people, then that's it. Vote. Sir.
Me. Hello, Willem Magnifico, first time here, 31 4th Street.
Welcome.
I just want to clarify, because it's been said beforehand a couple times. I just want to clarify, it does seem like we're being held against our will with this, because, we could say yes and then have this built and have all this space, all these people coming in, not enough space in the schools, not enough space on the streets. I'm just concerned that even if we say no, they're going to sue us for what we believe is right, even though we can't fit the people, the space, and everything involved. We can't fit that, and it's just like the funding too, how they would stop funding. I just don't understand how this is a win-win situation and how this would benefit us in the long run together.
Thank you.
Hello, Maria Kalinsky, 65 Liberty Street. I believe my question is probably going to go to the Finance Committee. Maybe we will become best friends after this. So since we've all acknowledged that there's already one town that has been sued, I'm curious, since we just approved the budget, what kind of budget do we have for legal if we vote no when we're sued?
So hypothetically, if we were to get a large legal bill now, if it was into $100,000, we would have the Finance and Board Reserve Fund, which we talked about earlier. If it's larger than that, we'd have to come to an appropriation at town meeting to come out of the rainy day fund. We don't have a line item in the budget for annual $1 million losses. So if it comes out of the rainy day fund, that has huge ramifications for future capital planning. So,
And how much is our rainy day fund?
what do we have right now? Roughly. About $2 million.
Okay,
Okay?
So rainy day fund, 2 million, and right now we have the
Around
100.
$100,000 appropriated for FY25 in the Finance Board Reserve Fund.
Okay. And if we needed more, we would need to go to a town meeting.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay?
Okay. We're all set.
Just real quick.
Okay.
It'll be real quick.
I think you already spoke.
I did, but I have something to say after somebody else said something to clarify. Because it's not just about changing the zoning laws. If the town votes to change the zoning laws, then we can vote to change the zoning laws. This is about the state forcing us, threatening us to change our zoning laws, not us doing it on our own because we think it's in the town's best interest.
All in favor of the motion on Article 23, say aye. Aye. All opposed, say nay. Nay. Well, you know what that means. We're doing a card count. All in favor, say aye by raising your cards. Keep them up until the teller in your section tells you to put them down. Okay. All opposed, say nay by raising your cards. Same thing, when the tellers reach your row, they'll tell you to put them down after your hand cards have been counted. Don't put them down until you're told. Okay, if I could beg your indulgence for a couple more minutes just to announce these results and then ask for a motion to dissolve. The vote on the motion for Article 23 was 101 yes and 161 no. The motion failed. May I have a motion to dissolve? All in favor?